My cricketing career began as a left-arm spinner.
Okay.
And at the age of 18, I got the yips thing.
Yeah.
And those people listening will probably recognise in others, if not in themselves, this tightening of the muscles that happens sometimes with after dinner speaking, where your muscles tighten up, your fear of drying up. So the terrifying nature of being a best man or speaking at a wedding or a funeral or whatever is a very real thing, and that manifests itself physically in some sports, particularly the fine motor skills bit. And bowling spinners using these fingers is very much, and it happens apparently more to left-arm spinners than right-arm spinners, which is something to do with the way we're wired up, I think. Anyway, so my fascination with what was going on for me mentally, which was leading to that, and the doubt in me that created, led me to begin to talk to my mum about psychology. And her elder brother was a dentist.
Hi there, I'm Dave Levine. Thanks for joining me on the very first show of the Sports Stories podcast. It's great to have you with me. Now, are you a parent looking for inspiration and ideas, or just interested in getting an insight into how successful players, coaches, managers, administrators and even parents found their way in sport? Then stay with us, you're in the right place. Look out for the never shared before insights in the life stories of individuals, some of who you may know, who are making a difference in sport locally, nationally and even internationally. Hear their incredible challenges and difficulties they have overcome, who has inspired them, what has been their key motivations, and crucially, hear the top tips and advice they would give you to both better yourself and those around you. I really believe there is inspiration and brilliant insight we can gain from everyone's story. So wherever you are, in the car, at the gym, having your lunch break or just being at home, take this protected time, listen deeply and enjoy. So if you like the Sports Stories podcast, please share with your colleagues and friends. Follow us on social media and subscribe. Also, please give us your feedback and any suggestions so we can make this even more enjoyable and beneficial to you.
Okay, Lordy, thanks for being with me today. It's a real great pleasure to have you along on the Sports Stories podcast. Little may you know, but you've been a real inspiration in my journey, and I've been reflecting over the past couple of weeks or so and thinking about how long ago it was that we came together and we started working together, and it's over 20 years.
Scary, isn't it?
It is really scary. So welcome and thanks for being part of this. The purpose is really to bring together some real inspiration for the people out there that are listening to the podcast. As a starter, would you just give us a little bit of a background as to your career and your story in sport?
I'd love to, Dave. Well, first of all, thanks very much. It's great to catch up, actually. It's been a little while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And also just reflecting on your introduction there, I'm going to embarrass you straight away by saying you probably don't know the value of the support you've offered me over the years. I think we've ended up mentoring each other. But, certainly my early memories of being involved in coach development and coach education were when you were working with Sports Coach UK and Coach Wise and looking at helping us with the complexities of qualification design and your ability to simplify the complex, I think, was something which I took a great deal from, and then also your extraordinary ability to challenge in a way that didn't upset me.
All right.
And I'm quite a precious player, you see, so I'm easily upset. So your early impact and something which is I've continued to reflect on over the years, and I know about the great work you've done with so many people, not only in cricket but in the football world as well, and something beyond that. So it's great to talk, and I'd love to tell you. I'd love to talk about myself, Dave.
No, that's good. That's great. So go on. I'm really conscious that you've had a real history and huge impact on the world of sports. So give us a bit of briefly your story.
Yeah. So my passion for coaching and my main love in sport is cricket.
Yeah.
Still is cricket.
Yeah.
Interesting using the past tense there, isn't it? Given where we're working now, where we're sitting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I bumped into cricket really through, I was very lucky, my dad played a little bit of cricket, played as a young man quite a lot.
Yeah.
And my first memory of the game was watching him play at Rowington Cricket Club for the Doctors Against the Clergy, and I was 7 years old, and
Yeah.
sipping a tomato juice and a packet of crisps. And I just loved the smell of the freshly cut grass and the
Yeah.
sort of bit of banter going on, the noise and the action, the peacefulness, the stillness and the movement, whatever it was about the game. And I sort of just got hooked on it a bit.
Right.
And so I think I knew from quite an early stage I wanted to play the game.
Okay.
Which I did, and ended up having a short professional career which I loved and was frustrated by at the same time. So I never probably fulfilled my potential as a player.
Okay. Yeah.
My reflections on that were really that I became very good at getting in my own way. I doubted myself. I lacked a sense of real deep self-belief, which obviously in elite sport it's going to get challenged.
Yeah.
So my own journey as a player really informed my desire to coach, and I think it's more deep-seated than that in me, because Dad was a surgeon, Mum was a doctor, and they were both helpers and carers, and so I think my perspective on coaching was it's helping people get better.
Yeah.
And get better means improve, but also be better in terms of not how I didn't know about mental health or anything else in those days, but this sense of people becoming stronger, becoming better in themselves, and therefore quite often connected to become better at their sport.
Yeah. So it's really about, how it's interesting for me about how sport has been an avenue for helping you become better as a person and to grow as a person.
Yes, I think it was probably. I mean, I think the way we're exposed to early years in particular.
Yeah.
A lovely family, Mum and Dad aren't here now, but a huge impact really. And what we give it there, sorry.
Yeah, no.
And then having the opportunity through being given the opportunity to go to a school where cricket was actually played, which is not that common.
No.
Being lucky enough to live next to reasonably close to a cricket club which had a decent junior section where I could play. So the sort of confluence of factors which enabled me probably to at least get the exposure, which gave me the opportunity to fulfil my potential. Ultimately, I didn't. But again, my dad always said to me that you spend quite often a lot of your life working in your second talent without knowing what your first talent is.
Brilliant.
And I don't actually think I was put here to play. I think I was here to coach.
So maybe you are fulfilling your potential.
Maybe now.
Second,
I'm certainly very much more. That's interesting. I think I'm more confident in my ability now as a developer of other coaches and people than I was in my ability to perform with bat and ball.
So Lordy, what if you could summarise it? Is there a quote or a message or a phrase that is kind of underpins what you do and how you do it now?
My cricketing career began as a left-arm spinner.
Okay.
And at the age of 18, I got the yips. So I got awful. It's a nice thing, and those people listening will probably recognise in others, if not in themselves, this tightening of the muscles that happens sometimes with after dinner speaking, where your muscles tighten up, your fear of drying up. So the terrifying nature of being a best man or speaking at a wedding or a funeral or whatever is a very real thing, and that manifests itself physically in some sports, particularly the fine motor skills bit. And bowling spinners using these fingers is very much. And it happens apparently more to left-arm spinners than right-arm spinners, which is something to do with the way we're wired up, I think. Anyway, So my fascination with what was going on for me mentally, which was leading to that, and the doubt in me that created, led me to begin to talk to my mum about psychology. And her elder brother was a dentist. He's not with us now, but he was a dentist, one of the first dentists to use hypnotherapy in treating people with root canal work and stuff. So didn't knock them out, just hypnotised them. And she said, how would you feel about being hypnotised? And I rejected it. For fear of losing control, I think. There was this, I'm exposing myself to something where I don't know what I'm going to be saying, I don't like the idea of being out of control. So she gave me a copy of a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay, which is about transactional analysis and about early experience, and I think she was recognising there was a bit of not okayness in me, and so that really stimulated my interest, and then dear old Neil Abley, who was the coach of Warwickshire, gave me a copy of Tim Galway's book, Within a Game of Tennis.
Yeah, okay, no, well, yeah.
And you asked me for a quote which sticks with me and informs my work.
Yeah.
In each of Tim's 5 books, in a game of tennis, in a game of golf, in a game of music, in a game of work, and in a game of skiing, Tim refers to his performance equation, which is performance equals potential minus interference.
Right.
So I recognised in myself that there was interference going on in my head, which was getting in the way of me achieving my performance potential. Okay. So performance equals potential minus interference, and my reflection on my early experience of being a coach, because I finished at 31, had to decide whether or not I wanted to go and work in HR and training and development. I worked for Lucas Group for a number of years. During the winter, a wonderful guy called Dick Chase, who was the HR manager at Engineering Systems in Shirley and Solihull, was the chairman of Moseley Cricket Club at the time.
Yeah, right. Brilliant.
And on the evening of the day that I'd been released by Warwickshire, I was having a beer and grinding a beer a bit at Moseley Cricket Club, chatting to a couple of mates, and Dick came across and said, I've been thinking about you. Just wondered if you might be interested in a graduate traineeship we've got going on Engineering Systems, looking at training and development. And quite extraordinary actually how his insight, he knew me a bit, but didn't know me well, but I was chatting to a couple of people, and he could see something in me I couldn't see myself.
What could he see in you?
So that you I don't know. I always found myself trying to help when I was playing. So I think this thing about when you're looking for a coach, don't look amongst coaches, look amongst those who coach.
Okay, yeah.
Somebody said, Michael Vaughan said, when you're looking for a captain, don't look amongst the captains, look amongst those who lead. So there's a subtle difference there. And so whether or not that was what Dick saw, funnily enough, we caught up via WhatsApp last week, first time for about 10 years.
Right.
And I'm mentoring somebody who is a family friend of the Chase, and I didn't know that. So it's amazing.
What goes around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a small world when you talk to people, and even small when you listen to them.
Yeah.
And so I think I knew then that I wanted to coach, and the idea of do I go into industry or do I go into cricket or coaching was a relatively straightforward decision for me when I knew there might be an opportunity. So I got an opportunity to go and be one of the first cricket development officers under Patrick Whittingdale scheme, who funded 3 development officer positions, and I was lucky enough to get one of those working in the Wrekin District Council in Shropshire. And did that for 9 months, and then had the opportunity to apply for a national coach role with what was then the National Cricket Association. Was recruited into that role and ended up working for Keith Andrew, who had been the coach on my first England 19 tour when I was 17. He was in his first year as being the technical director of the NCA. And Keith was one of the most inspiring men I've ever met. He was a member of the Magic Circle, practicing magician, extraordinary judge of human nature, and a visionary about coaching. And
so what was it that really inspired you about him? You've given 1 or 2 examples there, but if you were to point it down.
He had the ability to get people to talk by. Did you remember Keith?
I met him once, I think.
I mean, in magic they call this thing misdirection, don't they? And it's almost distracting people away from what's really happening. I was talking to a football coach about this morning. Young coach, junior international, lost his job, and is moving into coaching. And I asked him about who are the best coaches you've bumped into, and he gave me 3 names. And he said, I'll tell you what they all did. they all got us to do work we didn't realise we were doing because we thought we were doing something else, which is sort of misdirection, isn't it?
Yeah, could
and
be
that's
seen as
what
that.
Keith, I remember sitting in a meeting and he said, when the regional development managers first came, he sat all around a table and I was there as the young incoming national coach, and he said, gentlemen, welcome to the age of unreason. Welcome to the age of reason, is it? You know, the unreasonable thinker is what he was looking for. So it's sort of disruptive, but considered, positive input into helping people change and become better.
Yeah.
And he just had a gift of doing that, and in a very generous sort of way, quite a challenging way. Yeah. Actually, ridiculously intelligent way.
Okay. So if you're to boil it down, then what was it that he really did, do you think, that got to you? What was his skill?
Keith, I think, had the ability to foster curiosity and belief at the same time. Right. So I think he a little bit like Dick Chase, he could see something in me, an under 17-year-old touring Australia, hardly playing a game. Okay. And he walked on the eve of the first test match at the Adelaide Oval. He walked down, I was late down to the ground, and we walked down together from Aquinas College, about a mile's walk down to the ground. Yeah. And he talked to me on that walk about coaching. Okay. And the things that he said chimed with me so much when I reflected. I wouldn't have called it reflecting in those days, when I thought about the people who'd helped me. And the people who'd hindered me, and there were a few. And he was all about coach the person first. Okay.
So I want you to be really modest here, Lordy. Then, so what did he see in you? What was it?
I think probably I don't know. I never asked him, and he's not with us anymore. But there's this thing, isn't there, about coaches sometimes have the ability to see people as they can be rather than as they are, but they get a clue from how they are. Okay. And I'd like to think, and over the years I've had the privilege of working with a few now, and I have great fun with myself, and it's a sort of privilege and a curse at the same time, because I do find myself thinking, how good could they
be? Potential in them.
Yeah. So is it a deep analysis, or is it a subconscious intuitional gut feel about somebody? I don't know. I think we all probably do it in different ways, don't we? And we all have different triggers in terms of what we look for in people, what we look for in players. But I think I've got an insight into who might coach and who might not. Okay. Don't know how good they're going to be, but there's that sort of. So I wonder if I've inherited that a little bit through my experience with my parents and bumping into other coaches, and then just. Is it the law of attraction? I don't know what it is, but the sort of thing where something causes people to make a gesture of human kindness, which then gets sometimes big impact, big results.
There's so much in there that we could dig into, and maybe we'll come to some more of it in a second or so. But I'm also wondering, from what you've told me about your story so far. Can you take us to a place where you've one of the low times in your career, and actually how did that play out, or one of the tricky times in your career, how did that play out, and also then how did that philosophy and approach that you've broadly shared helped you go through that?
Well, I think I've referred already to this. My identity as a young guy was on the left arm spinner of batsman, and the yips is quite a scary thing, because you do feel completely bereft of the skill which you thought was your thing. So that was a low point. And had it not been for Neil Aberley giving me a copy of the Inner Game of Tennis and saying, and it's the second time I said this today, I've been thinking about you. Which is a very powerful signal.
Really powerful.
Because it means that people are actually bothered about you when you're not there. And so this caring, this feeling you matter is an important thing for me. Professor Tony Gay's written a really interesting article, actually, it's a 2-pager, I'll send it to you, about the importance of mattering or not mattering, and the significant impact that has on people, and it's all about the relational side of coaching and understanding human nature, which I think is what coaching is about.
Yeah, and it's that, and in your lower periods of your career, you know, the highs, and obviously we've all hit lows and we have lows.
Yeah.
Is that caring thing that's really one of the fundamentals that's come out in terms of helped you through? You know, are there coaches that you can identify or people around you that have helped you through those periods because they've shown that they cared? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, not always coaches. So another low point was when I lost my Warwickshire contract at the age of 26.
Okay, yeah.
25, 26.
Yeah.
I can't remember what year it was, 1986, 1985, can't remember.
Okay. Yeah.
And my old housemaster from school, Roger Rushford, wrote me a lovely letter. And it's just little things like that, isn't it? People keeping in touch. It's not a big thing, it's not writing a book or an essay, it's a little one side of handwritten paper saying, keep your chin up. You know,
small things make the big difference.
Your natural enthusiasm and joy for life will get you through. You're a strong man, get on with it. You know,
that's powerful.
Yeah,
really powerful stuff.
So it is that little gesture, isn't it? Sometimes. Now I know there's a hard side. Performance coaching is about, you know, what do you call it, marginal gains and all that stuff. But I think when we're talking about the big percentages, actually, particularly now, even more so than ever, caring about people is really significant. Yeah. And people who know they're secure. Yeah. So an old friend of mine, Chris Grant, quotes Wilfred Bion.
Okay, yeah.
Who was a psychoanalyst Second World War time, and he said, you can focus on your security or you can focus on your work, but you can't focus on both. So when we feel secure in ourselves, that allows us to be free to focus on the job that needs doing. Yeah. But if we're worried about losing that job, we won't perform. Now I think that's quite interesting.
Again, that's powerful, isn't it, in terms of...
So I'm probably going to talk about a lot of different people, and none of this is really my own. That's the thing. I think I'm a magpie in terms of stuff that I've bumped into, and more importantly for me, people I've bumped into that have impacted on my emerging philosophy. And I learn every day. I'm still, you know, I'm meeting some amazing people through the work I'm now doing in different sports and in business, and it's just a privilege, isn't it, really?
It is. Well, but, you know, in the journey that I've been on alongside with you, though, you know, it's taken a lot of hard work as well, you know, to form the knowledge and the experience and what you've done, you know, and I guess an area I'd like to draw you to then is also, you know, I asked you a little bit about one of the lower times in your career. What would be one of the high moments, an area that you celebrated, and how have you referred that back to your sort of philosophy and your approach, and maybe even those statements that you mentioned earlier on that's really helped you? And what part did they play in?
From a playing perspective, so from a playing career, if I think of you'll laugh at this, but if I think of myself as the athlete,
you are an athlete,
of course, then there were probably two really significant moments which I have reflected on significantly since. The first one would have been as a young, struggling Warwickshire player. Okay. Yeah. Having done 3 years away at university, understanding that the end bit of my third year was the point where I'd have a summer contract, and then there was no contract at the end of that. Okay. And I managed to break into the first team at Warwickshire. Yeah. And actually got some runs. Debuted and did all right. Yeah. And then a couple of years later, again having had this sort of in and out first team, second team career, I played against Yorkshire at Edgbaston and got a big score. Got 199, ran myself out. Wow. And I remember David Brown, who was the manager and a really good man, Old England fast bowler, who was one of the first cricket managers actually. He didn't regard himself as a coach, but he was a great coach because he managed people. And there was a rain interruption. I was about 40 not out, and there was a rain interruption. I actually played really nicely, and it was a flat pitch and a short boundary one side, and Brownie just came up to me quietly, sat down beside me and said, "Lordy, you can piss 100 out there." Excuse my language. But then he stood and walked away. And because he wasn't a great giver of praise.
Yeah, okay.
And he wasn't a great effervescent speaker, but it was delivered with such certainty and such belief that it fostered that belief in me. And I thought, I can. And I did. And
so somebody believing in you.
Yes, really. Sort of vicarious, or whatever it is, I don't know what you call it, but self-belief is much more complex than that. But for me, in that moment, and the timing of it, and the fact that I was in a good place to receive it, it didn't feel hollow. It didn't
the genuineness.
And that was actually, it came right from the heart of the man. Oh. It was a thing, we'd all call it authentic now. And I don't know what the word I'd have chosen then, but it was just Brownie. I thought, he's bloody right. And it just awakened something in me, it released me, and I stopped talking to myself about how I couldn't. And I thought about how I could, and just did.
So it flipped the message in day on.
So that was a really significant moment. And then a couple of years later I got the sack. And then went to Worcester. And again, did all right, and then got dropped in and outside 4 or 5 times. And then I got to a point where it was midway through the last year of my contract. Again, first ever 2-year contract I got. And midway through the second year, and I'd already been told that I was going to be released at the end of the year. And then there was an injury to the opening batsman, and the other opening batsman got an upset stomach, so I had to go down. I had to go down to Chelmsford and open the batting. And sorry, not Chelmsford, Canterbury, played against Kent. And I got that sense of freedom again. And I think it was you've got nothing to lose here. You got everything to gain. So it wasn't like I'm going at the end of the year as well. I might just. And Phil Neal, the England team manager, when he was captain at the time, he phoned me up and said, "Lordy, we'd like you to play." And I said, "Well, I'm Chelsea, I play second team game. I can get down to Canterbury, but I'm not in great nick." And he said, "Lordy, if you're going to go down doing it your way." Again,
so it allowed you to do your way.
It came from a good place. So the thing about intent, allied to belief, is really important. I think. Now, that works for me. It wouldn't work for everybody. There are some people who need very different approaches. And my early coaching career was so massively informed by how I'd like to have been coached that I went too far down the let's support, not challenge. And actually, chatting with you in those early days, I think that's where I got the challenge bit from as well. It doesn't have to be challenged, it doesn't have to be nasty. It can be hard. And
it's coming from the right place again, though, isn't it? It's the challenge from the right intent in the right place.
And many years later, I bumped into Rick Charlesworth, who's written some brilliant stuff. I know him. And his great line is, "Comfort the discomforted, and discomfort the comfortable." So I think I was quite good at comforting the discomforted.
Can you give us an example of when that's either of those points played out in your coaching?
Yeah, I can. And I've told the story many times. One of my very great privileges in my early coaching career was to coach Ben Hollyoak, who was the young all-rounder, Australian-born, who played for England in the 14s, fairly soon after I'd become involved. And Ben was a phenomenally talented young cricketer who, in that under 14 side, had experienced a bit of a bad patch. And we were at Loughborough, and I was throwing some balls to him in the net. And I was pumping his tyres up. I was giving him what I needed, and I was saying, "God, it's brilliant, Ben. You're looking great, Nick. Sunshine. Well done. Brilliant." And he walked down the net to me, 14 years old. He was 6 foot then, but he walked down the net to me, and he said, "Gordon, can I call you Gordon?" I went, "Yeah." And he said, "I don't need you to tell me I'm good. I know I'm good. I need to know how to get better." And I can't imagine me as a 35-year-old saying that to somebody, let alone a 14-year-old. But that gave me the insight into he doesn't need me pumping his tyres. He might not be a nick, but he's got no question about his self-belief to stop it. So that was.
Why am I pumping his tyres up for who?
Out of the mouths of babes. So, it's classic, isn't it? So the whole thing, and then the likes of Mike Fordham at Bradford University Management School and the programme which Mickey Stewart got us all involved with, which was a precursor to the Level 4 programme, just talked about this flexible style that we need and the understanding of people. We have to know how to get the best out of them, which might be different to how we get the best out of ourselves. So we're all inclined to coach in our own image, aren't we, when we start?
And then more recently then, give us can you give me an example of a scenario or a situation where your style has really come through, your flexibility, and you've seen the highlights of your interactions and your involvement? Bringing it a bit more up to date for you.
Yeah, I mean, as you're aware, when I finished working with the ECB 3 years ago now, and then went to the RFU to do a very similar role, so working with elite and emerging elite coaches in Rugby Union, which is a sport that I'm actually very fond of and played a bit as a kid, but I have absolutely no experience or understanding of what it's like to play at the top end. So the challenge for me was going into high performance environments and with precious little knowledge of the sport. So in fact, not being able to speak, let alone understand the language of the sport. Having to focus on the people and having to focus on how they may wish to develop, accepting they wouldn't be expecting technical input or tactical input from me. And I very early in the piece, my boss asked me to go up to Newcastle to meet with the director of rugby there. And I'd heard of him, I'll tell you his name in a minute, but I'd heard of him, and he'd got a phenomenal playing career record. He'd been a multi-capped British and Irish Lion and was a legend of the game. Ex-policeman. Massive alpha male. And a bit scary for everybody. My boss, in the same way that Mickey Stewart used to throw me into environments which would stretch me, my boss had done the same. Second meeting out of Twickenham, nip up and go up to Newcastle, go and see Dean Richards. So, not wanting to be late, I jumped in my car at 4 o'clock in the morning. I was driving past Durham, my old university, at 7:45. I didn't have to be up at the ground in Newcastle until 11:45. So I thought, well, I might as well just pop into Durham, go and have a cup of tea. So I took myself into Durham and parked up on Palace Green, where the old library was. And the Palace Green tea rooms where Tracy and I used to go and sit. It's just it's lovely, and they just opened the doors up there. I got out of the car. It's about 8 o'clock, and nobody else in there, and like a cup of tea. And I said, I'd love a cup of tea. And I talked to the people there about how I'd been there years before, and they said, do you want a newspaper? Gave me a newspaper. And then somebody came in from outside with a couple of trays, and on those trays was beautiful chocolate cakes. I said, would you like a piece of chocolate cake? And I said, it's breakfast time. Yes, please.
And, true to form.
And I did. I sat there, had a lovely hour and a half there, and read the paper, settled myself down a bit, calm nerves. I was a bit starstruck with this idea of going to have to talk to Dean Richards. Even I knew who Dean Richards was. And then I got in the car, and slightly the nerves started to come again. I was driving up to Kingston Park, and I went and sat in the it's not a pavilion, in the clubhouse. And there were a few players around and people milling around a little bit. And I was chatting to a couple of people, just trying to settle myself down. And I was just aware of this huge looming presence behind me. And I turned round, and it went dark. It was Dean Richards standing behind me. He said, he must be Gordon. He said, why, you must have set up early. I said, earlier than you think. I said, what time did you set off? I said, 4:15. He said, where you been? I said, I've been to the Palace Green tea rooms. And he said, it's nice there, isn't it? I said, it is. He said, do you have a piece of chocolate cake? I said, I did. I said, how do you know about that? And he says, my wife makes that. So he was actually a real inspiration to me in terms of understanding how in that sport managing people and leading people is still at the heart of it. You've got to know the differentiator is that the threshold is knowing the game.
Yeah.
But actually, so the lessons I'd learned through bitter experience and some real privileged access to some amazing people in cricket, then allowed me to feel as I could at least contribute in that environment. But the probably the most significant learning I've had through my career in elite sport is that in the main, elite people are just people. Some difficult ones, of course there are. Yeah. But in the main, people may wear a mask, they may have to feel as they have to behave in a certain way, and they may be under significant pressure which causes them to behave strangely. But actually they're just people. And so I used to be nervous about walking into dressing rooms, with big hitters in them, and people who've got massive reputations. But actually, the more you bump into these people, you may more realise that the better are quite often. Yeah. The more pressure they feel under, and therefore the more they actually just want you to be normal.
Yeah, and they're probably more anxious about you nearly.
Sometimes. I'd be very nervous about going and didn't go into dressing rooms in competition very much.
When do you think you worked that out, or found that out, worked out the fact?
Later on, I'd certainly been working for what became the ECB for a good 15 years. I did 25 years in total, and probably the last 10 years of my career there in coach development. I started to work out that maybe we're just overcomplicating this a little bit. And there's a brilliant book called Miss Smiller's Feeling for Snow, which is a Scandinavian crime thriller. And the feeling for snow represents an understanding that in Scandinavian languages there are multiple words for snow, because there's so many different types and you have so much of it that the people who live in it have a deeper understanding. And I think I have a feeling for sport and a feeling for coaching, so it matters less about the sport because I know sport and I have a feeling for coaches. So there's a language, isn't there? There's a way in which you can speak to yourself and speak to others about what you're experiencing, what they're experiencing, what you're noticing.
So this is probably quite a challenging question, Lordy. I'm thinking about the people that are listening to your story.
Well, I'm not surprised that that's coming from you, Dave. Here we go, right.
I'm just thinking, how do we help those people coming into sport learn from your guidance or your story there to work that out for them? What advice would you give somebody coming into this environment?
I'm a great fan of an approach which comes from neuro-linguistic programming called perceptual positions. So
what's that for?
Perceptual positions is where you and I are sitting opposite each other. And in a normal interaction, I'm talking with you and you're talking with me, and you see me through your eyes and I see you through mine.
Great.
That's position one.
Right.
Position two is where I consciously, whilst I remain here in my chair physically, I go and sit where you're sitting, I look back at me through your eyes and I see what I'm seeing. So I notice then my communication, I notice how I'm coming across. So that's position two. Position three, and this is the really interesting one, is if I take myself out of my body and take myself away from where you're sitting, I go and sit over there by the camera. And I observe this conversation from the third position. And it's possible to do this, you actually practice it. And then you can see the nature of the interaction through others' eyes, not your own. And of course, when you're coaching somebody, they're seeing you through their eyes. And sometimes being able to go and sit there in position three means that you're seeing the whole interaction, because your behaviour impacts mine in the same way as mine may impact yours, but in a different way.
So are we suggesting that people that are coming onto this journey are beginning to think about how they can go and sit in that third position and look at, or step out of the role and look back in?
I think there's the reflection in action, which is what we're talking about here, where you're doing it while you're doing it. And then there's this whole approach to finding meaningful time to reflect each day, probably. In a quiet time, which is quite often driving home, or just thinking about, what did I notice? Something seemed to trigger something there. I'll just remember that and calibrate it and see if something happens again. And what's been really interesting today is that when I did this, that created that behaviour in that person, what different behaviour in that person, what was that about?
Yeah.
And so that meaningful time to reflect, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
And I'd encourage people to think about that.
And again, just looking at that sort of reflection in action, and how might people engage in that if they're not used to it? Do you think what might be just a small first step to begin to practice that skill? Because you've obviously developed this over time. How might people start?
Well, I'm always interested in the relative comfort or discomfort with a pause in conversation.
Yeah.
And as you become more used to having a moment to reflect in action, then probably that pause gets shorter, or sometimes there's no tangible pause. But actually being comfortable with that pause in a conversation where I'm actually just going to go and sit over there while I'm talking to you and noticing, and people don't mind.
Yeah.
You don't have to fill the space. Actually filling the space creates interference, which gets in the way of it.
So I'm really hearing, so not filling the space is maybe something that people can start practicing, not feeling more comfortable with that idea.
I'm trying to suggest for a moment that you are filling your own space because you're actually consciously learning something. Okay, great, the challenge with it is that you need to become fairly adept in it, otherwise it creates interference for you as the coach. Yeah. Okay. So it's like anything else, it's a skill, isn't it? You practice it, and I'm still practicing it. And what's really interesting doing this exercise is we've actually got a third position out there. Yeah. So I'm going to look forward to watching this and seeing whether my perceptions of how we're going actually what's coming across. Yeah. Okay, great stuff. So actually putting a camera on it, so it's quite a good idea, isn't it? Well, and that's a thought in itself, isn't there, about actually how we create that third party or video watch ourselves in action and then reflect back on it, both verbally and visually. Yeah. So I'm conscious that we could keep going on this, and I'm loving the conversation. Just to drill us down then into a few sort of tangible things, I'm going to fire a few quick questions at you, which, without going into too much dialogue, well, give me your gut feel or your gut first answer that comes back. So, what would you say that the two kind of books or articles that you would refer to and that have had the biggest impact on your career to date? What would they be? Can I give you three? Go on, give me three. Yeah. So I've already mentioned one. Yeah. In a game of tennis, Tim Galway. Yeah. Performance equals potential minus influence. Brilliant. Part of that book. Yeah. Having had the privilege to also meet Tim and introduce Tim to Neil Abley, who gave me the book the first time, was immense privilege. Yeah. So that would be book number one. Yeah. Book number two looks at, and I used the word authentic earlier on, and it's a sort of buzzword, management word now. Yeah, it's about being you. Yeah. Okay. And there is a brilliant book by Goffey and Jones called Why Should Anyone Be Led By You? Yeah. And the strap line from that book is, be yourself with more skill. Be yourself with more skill. So you know how players sometimes say, that's the way I play. Yeah. And I've never heard a coach say it, but I think some coaches sometimes think, I know I did, that's the way I coach. Yeah. Well, that's fine. Yeah. You owe it to yourself and the people you're working with to become increasingly skillful in being you. Yeah. As opposed to just being you. Yeah. Yeah. So and that's not about range. But that's not about just playing or coaching, that's about living, isn't it? That's kind of being a person in your community, in your world. Yeah. Be yourself with skill. Well, I talked earlier on about I in my early career, I think probably still I have a default position which is support rather than challenge. Yeah. You're one of the best I know at providing that challenge but in a supportive way. Yeah. So I've had to learn to adapt that. Yeah. And I practice it. Yeah. And I notice what's going on when I do it, and I notice when it always feels a bit clunky actually. Oh, and knowing you for 20 years, you're pretty skilled at that now. Oh, much more so than you ever were. But you're one of the best around, and I'm not just saying that because I'm old and grey. It's probably I had plenty of games at it and got it wrong a lot of times. So anyway, so that would be my second book, and the third book I was given by a young Australian AFL legend a few weeks ago. So I was down doing some work with a brilliant guy called John McDermott at Spurs Football Club. Yeah. And he had invited in Sam Mitchell, who was the captain of Hawthorn's AFL side,
Right.
2014 to 16, when they won the Premiership 3 years on the bounce.
Yeah.
And he's now 2 years into a coaching career.
Right.
And he was reflecting on how he'd changed as a person,
Yeah.
because he was now coaching and a father.
Oh,
Right.
brilliant.
So his book is called Relentless, and he explores this, what made him what he was as a player, which was he failed the draft, he was slow, he was heavy, he lacked strength.
Yeah.
But what he did have was a phenomenal work ethic.
Yeah.
And the ability to read the game quicker than anybody else. So he was always half a step ahead, and they recognised that, signed him, and he became a great player. Not just a good one, a great player. And his book is very self-reflective and very insightful, and for coaches I think the bit where he starts talking about how he's changed is telling.
Yeah. And
So he's
powerful
sort of
stuff,
self-coached really, I suppose, but phenomenal. So those are three ones which popped to mind. I mean, there are many more. I love a read.
Yeah, I know. Okay, great. And that's really three really powerful books there. My next question would be, again, quick fire, gut feel. Who would be the two or three most inspirational, impactful people that you've had throughout your career? And we've heard many people that you've talked about, but I'm going to push you for.
Yeah. Okay. Many people have had an impact. If I name two or three now, I'm going to miss loads.
Yeah, I get that.
I find so many things about people and so many people inspiration.
Yeah.
I had the privilege of meeting a guy called Chris Grant, who claimed to fame working in the city in financial services training and stuff. Ended up chairing the group that implemented chip and pin in the UK.
Yeah.
So you can imagine a room full of bankers, some want to, some don't want to.
I can.
And he is the most adept at reading a room.
Okay.
And he uses this expression, me, we, which is, he puts himself in the chair of a meeting and he goes, where am I with this? Where are you with this? And then where are we with this?
Okay.
And there's this pulsing in and out of noticing what's going on. And that was hugely relevant for me, thinking about dressing rooms and team coaching.
Yeah.
Because there's always a lot going on.
Yeah.
And his understanding of group dynamics is quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
And through Chris, I met a brilliant little American woman called Wendy Palmer, who is an Aikido master, who's coached presidents of the United States as an executive coach, and has written a book called Leadership Embodiment. And Wendy's understanding of the impact of physical posture on presence is as good as I've ever seen. So her understanding of her physical presence, born of her understanding of martial arts, and then how that translates into having presence on stage is quite phenomenal. So when I met Wendy, we were talking about a slide she'd put up, and on the slide there were about 30 people, some of whom I recognised, some of whom I didn't.
Yeah.
And she was saying that as a young person she'd been very nervous about speaking on stage, and this is something people relate to, this idea of one of the deepest fears. And she said she was always good at talking to one, but she had a great fear of talking to many. And the way she got through was she had this slide in her mind of the people who had helped her. And family, friends, mentors, coaches, people she'd had an impact on, so she felt good about. And she said, when I walk on stage, I have all those people standing behind me. So her strength was referred, it came from the people who had given her depth, which I thought was fabulous. And she said, if you can coach one and you can talk to one, doesn't necessarily mean you can speak to 1,000, but you may be able to. I've met plenty of people who can speak to 1,000, they can't speak to one. Which do you think is more important? So being able to speak to a person. So her, not only did she have these group of people behind her, but when she's talking to 10,000, she's still talking to that one, and that one, that one, that one. So it's individual conversations and the personalisation of a message through eye contact, posture, and this stuff that goes on with human connection, which she gives an amazing insight to into leadership embodiment. So that's pretty powerful.
It is.
I'll tell you who's inspired me. And again, this was last week.
Great. Yes.
So I was down at Spurs, and I was introduced to a name you'll recognise, Pat Jennings.
Okay. Yeah.
When I was a young kid, I was a goalkeeper.
Yeah.
He was one of my absolute heroes. I had no idea he was doing some goalkeeping coaching.
Brilliant.
And again, John got him in, and just to spend a few minutes in the presence of your childhood idol.
Brilliant.
And to realise he's 73 years old now. He's absolutely ripped. He's got the biggest hands, the strongest hands. And he was very, very kind in sharing, not only with me, but the other people in the room, the fact that this, which had been a fundamental part of his goalkeeping success, came from the fact between the age of 14 and 17, he'd worked with a tree surgeon in Northern Ireland. Yeah. So this amazing power in his hands was deep-seated.
Yeah.
So it didn't come from, so he played Gaelic football as a young kid, which is why he was good in the air.
Yeah.
So having somebody who had been such a great and such a legend, and earlier that day they'd played the This Is Your Life programme, in which towards the end of his career, for the kids he was working
with.
And he was there, and a humble, generous, brilliant genius of a man. And the two first people who came on, Eamon and Andrews invited me on the programme, and listeners will recognise This Is Your Life, were Pele and George Best. Now, you just think the esteem in which that guy must have been held. And then, you're meeting somebody who's your idol. So I got goosebumps about that. So that's probably a sort of it's a selfish story.
Well, and I'm going to flip the coin there and this might be again an unfair question, but give me a sense of who do you think you've had the biggest impact and inspired, whether it's an individual or and why? Because you have so many, and I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering which ones resonate with you. Where have you made your biggest
I'm really going to struggle with that. Because there's a thing in I think there's a thing in coaching about understanding that impact isn't immediate. The people who had the biggest impact on me, some of whom would never know, which I regret. So, I would counsel people who, when they're talking to me about who's had an impact on them, I said, do they know that? And they said, I don't know. It's all good. Damn them. Just say thank you. Because the impact people have is phenomenal. So I genuinely can't answer that. I'd like to know who I think I've had an impact on, but I may or may not have done, because I don't go asking. I get huge satisfaction and fulfilment. I love helping people and seeing people grow. But it's sometimes their environment which is growing them, it's sometimes them that's growing themselves, and sometimes on occasions I'm sure I've had an impact. I wouldn't like to take credit for any individual.
And Lordy, we could go on all day, and I'm fascinated by your story, and I know there are so many parts of your story which you haven't shared because we haven't got time to share them. I just would like to sort of give you the opportunity just to finish off here in terms of actually, if people want to find out more about what you do and how you do it, how might they be able to find out more?
Well, when I left the union in April, I established a company, a limited company, which is called Get Coaching. I had to call it limited, so Get Coaching Limited isn't great, is it really? I want it unlimited.
Unlimited. Brilliant.
But I have a small website which just really is. I was quite interested. You asked me the question about who I'd have had an impact on, and I did ask some people I've worked with over the years just to write a few words. So there's some very kind and thoughtful and generous endorsements on there. And it just talks a little bit about some of the stuff that I'm doing and who I'm working with at the moment. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about coaching and about them and stuff.
And I hear coaching in its broadest sense of actually developing of people.
I think that's what coaching is really. I think a subset of coaching is performance. But I genuinely believe that John Wooden said, good coaches change games, great coaches change people, change lives. And that I wouldn't call myself as a great coach, but I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And I'll work on it till the day I die.
And Lordy, on that note, I think it's a pleasure for me to have to say this. I've always wanted to talk to you in this way, and hope we can continue to do so. But I know for certain you've impacted on me and my journey. I know you were very kind in offering me a similar sort of feedback, but I also know that you've impacted and made a real difference to many people's journey, not just in cricket, but in sport and across the whole spectrum. So,
that's kind of well, it's been great to chat. So that's a luxury for us, isn't it?
Well, it is. It is.
Just to talk about.
Brilliant, and
comfortable.
Well, and just to finish off, thank you ever so much. And the purpose of the sports stories is to really inspire people, not just in cricket, but actually in sport and across the world, really, because I think sport is such a powerful vehicle. And what you have done for me is shared how it's impacted both, through the tough times and the good times over your career. And I'd love to have you back on the Sports Stories podcast at some stage just to share further bits, because your insights are so valuable. So, Lordy, thanks very much.
Very good to see you.
So that was the sports story of Gordon Lord, internationally recognised people developer. I'm sure you will agree there were countless pearls of wisdom, and sincerely hope that you enjoyed the conversation and that there was something there for you to take away and use. I do hope that Lordy will join us again on the Sports Stories podcast, as I have a real sense that there are many more stories and amazing insights we would love to hear from him. Should you wish to find out more about what Lordy does, how he does it, then please take a look at his website, getcoaching.net. That's getcoaching.net. Also, don't miss out on looking at the show notes, where there is a summary of key parts of the conversation, including the responses to the quickfire questions. You will also find some links to the books and resources mentioned. And finally, to you, the listener, it's been great to have you with us on the Sports Stories podcast today. I do hope you have valued listening and have taken some form of learning or inspiration from the conversation. There will be further podcasts released next week, and it would be great to have you listening in. To find out more, not to miss any of our guests, please also follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and of course don't forget to subscribe. If you want to contact me directly, then email me on sportsstories247@gmail.com. We will always welcome feedback and recommendations on future guests. Thanks again for listening, and I really look forward to having you with me on the next show.